Mhm. Okay. Okay, so here, turn this off. And let's see. Put this there. And that. Silence this. Okay, what time is it? 33 out there. Okay, let's wait a few more minutes. Okay. Two, three, four. Wait a few more minutes before we get started. Let's go over. All right, let me put my clock, my timer on. Wait for the 1 minute clock. Here we go. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Yep, that's enough time. So let's go ahead and get started. So good day, everyone. Dr. O here again, just saying welcome and thank you for taking the time to participate and watch this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you haven't already. This session is dedicated to the women, the ladies and the women, with the focus on what do they need from men. In particular, the title, what do you need from men to better support you? So that's what I'm interested in. And believe it or not, men want to understand you. We want to understand you. We want to understand what you need from us to better support you, to help prop you up, to help lift your spirits, your self-esteem, your confidence, to provide you what you need so you can feel like you don't have to do a man's job, for example, if you do feel that way, to provide you with the support you need, where you have the confidence in the men in your life to do what's necessary so you don't have to do so much or even feel like if you don't do it, nothing will get done. Men, I think in general, we want you to feel like you have support in whatever way you need. So women, that's the question. I want to hear from you and what you need from men in your life in order to better support you. And that's the central theme. I want to hear from you. What do you need from the men in your life in order to better support you? And that can be a boyfriend, a husband, can be that type of relationship, or just men in general. So whichever focus you wanna point to, that's on you. But I do want to hear from you. What do you need from the men in your life to better support you? So, no response yet. Does that mean that you all have all the support you need? See some more people that are just joining us, so I'll reiterate some of what I've already said, and that this video is focused on women and what do women need from men to better support you. And I was also saying that men, we do want to understand you. We want to know what it is that you need to better support you, because we think we may know, but then it's based on our perspective, right? So we're here we want to be able to help you, prop you up, uplift you, your spirits, and your self-esteem, your value, your confidence, to provide you whatever it is that you need, so that you don't have to. You can do what you think you need to be doing versus what a man should be doing. So you don't have to do the man's job, and to have the confidence in your life so that you don't feel like if you don't do something, it won't get done, and so that you don't have to do as much. So I think in general, men, we want to know, or at least understand, what it is you need from men to better support you. see people online, but I don't see any messages coming through. Does that mean that either nobody's typing or you do have all the support that you need from men in your life to better support you? I think communication is key. Somebody wrote, both parties need to have conversations about what is expected from each other and to be truly honest when doing so. When should that happen? Is that at what point? I have a follow-up question based on your response. You said both parties need to have conversations about what is expected from each other and to be truly honest when doing so. Is that a particular point in a relationship that should happen? Some people may say money, but that wouldn't be all. I believe women need more emotional support. All right. So it's not all about finances and emotional support. Emotional support in what way? What does emotional support mean to you? I think it should happen often. Situations change. So communication is not a destination. It's good, critical, relational type conversations should be frequent or as needed. I agree with that. Your point of I think it should happen often. Situations change. Situations, circumstances, and even if they don't change, it's vital to any healthy relationship, regardless of the type of relationship. But it's vital to have healthy conversations, regardless if the situation hasn't changed or not. So, because if the situation doesn't change, that can be read of, then there's no need for conversation if the situation doesn't change. So I would personally take away that situations change and just I think it should happen often. Right. You said conversations to the question of I believe women need more emotional support. You said conversations. So if they have conversations with you, does that answer the question or does that meet the criteria of emotional support? Just conversations. Sometimes men listen with one ear or no ears, especially if we're distracted, Well, let's say we're sports fanatics and the game is on and you're trying to talk to us. So we may not have heard most of what you said. But then I think y'all do that on purpose. Talk to us at the inopportune times when you know we're having to choose between what I really want to do, which is anything else. But in this particular case, what I really want to do is watch the game. We have to choose between that, which is only going to come on at one time in your conversation, which you can save until later. But you want to have it right then and there. I think it should happen often. Who should initiate those conversations? Can it be either one? Is it the person that has something to or have more vested in the conversation? Should they bring it up? If something is wrong, yes, we want to talk now. Not being put off because a game is on. It doesn't have to be a game. But what if it's game 7 or the Super Bowl? Should we wait? But I hear what you're saying. If something is wrong, yes, we want to talk now, not being put off because a game is on. That's going to be hard for some men, as if the game is on, it's a critical moment. The last 3 minutes is a close game. You want to talk this very second. Is what you say going to go away? Or what you have to say, is that going to go away if you can wait a few more minutes? But I do hear your point. They need to be attuned and more attentive, regardless of any obstacle or outside influence to the conversation. It says it doesn't matter. Then men will listen with an attitude. You're right. If we're forced to listen at an inopportune time, in our opinion, let's say the game is on, it may be with an attitude, a bad attitude. And then we may not be focused. So if we're still in the room, even if we muted, we're gonna one eye on the TV and one eye and one ear listening. I think there should be planned in advance to talk about it. So setting aside time to have the discussions. We're still on communication, setting aside time. I like that answer because I'm not going to schedule a time if I know something's on that I need to watch or I feel like I need to watch. So if you think it should be planned in advance, what happens if something throws that plan off course? Because some things may be spontaneous, or where it comes up, or you just need to talk about it right now. But other things I can see, hey, let's plan. We need to sit down. We need to talk about X, Y, and Z. How do you respond when, through no fault of his, that the plan he's not able to, or you both aren't able to stick to that plan? If it's an urgent matter, it's okay to do so, but if it's not, later. I wish more had that belief system or that perspective of yours. It's okay if we talk about it later, because I don't know, I've ran into women, and just when I would kind of counsel or mentor younger couples and everything, and some of what they say suggests, the men anyway, that every conversation from a woman, they see it as a urgent matter. Like everything is right now, everything is an urgency. Question. So what are some barriers have you noticed that make it difficult for men to understand what you need from them? What are some of the barriers have you seen that make it difficult for men to understand what you need? We go back. So sometimes it causes friction if you do it in the moment. Sometimes people need to be able to calm down and have a clear head. Absolutely, irrationality and anger, or just stress in general may derail the conversation, may kind of force the conversation down a path you didn't want it to. And if you're not calm, then and I've seen that happen. It's happened with me, where if I'm in a moment and I don't have time to reflect on the situation, let's say it's something that I know is coming, or I know what this conversation is about, because it can be planned or what have you. But if I'm not calm and I'm not clear-headed, then I'm less likely to listen. I'm less likely to see your point, even if I agree with it. Um, I'm more likely to reject really anything that you have to say. I'm more likely to reject it. So that's a good point. That's a good point. But going back to my next question, my previous question, what barriers have you noticed that make it difficult for men to understand what it is you need from them to support you? Oh, hello to you. I think men learning to keep their emotions to themselves all their lives causes conflict. To be emotionally connected in relationship. I think men learning to keep their emotions to themselves all their life causes conflict to be emotionally connected in their relationship, right? So they're not emotionally mature. I hear what you're saying. From an early age, men are taught to, at least some, are taught to keep your emotions in check. I had a godson, and I remember he was crying about something. I don't know how old he was, 6 or 7, and I flat out told him, "Hey, we don't do that. We don't cry like that." I forgot what he was crying for, but in my opinion, it wasn't worth crying, and that's not something that he should be doing, not as a not as a male. But that can be an issue. It prevents us from, among other things, but it prevents us from opening up. It prevents us from letting our emotions out because that can be seen or has been seen more of a feminine thing than a masculine thing. I don't know what the men are today. Don't they want to know what women want? Maybe it's scared them all. Yeah, maybe it scared them off because if you learn of something, you're supposed to take it and act on it. So if they don't know, they haven't heard, they can't say. They can no longer say, oh, I didn't know what you meant. I didn't know what you wanted, I should say. I didn't know how you felt, type thing. But if they see and they hear it, then then they're charged with it. They're responsible for it. Maybe that's why they're absent. As we are taught to deal with our emotions, and many of them aren't. Yeah, many. I think men in general, many, if it's the majority or not, some few aren't taught to deal with our emotions other than what you won't do, which is cry and be sad and be emotional. Or maybe they don't care about us the way some men say we don't care about them. Sometimes men seem to want to bash and not heal. If men are more prone to be aggressive, according to a variety of studies, scientific studies, and just hearing in everyday news and just in general, I think it's accepted in general that men are aggressive. They're more aggressive compared to women. And aggression is on the opposite side of being emotional from a feminine perspective. So yes, we are taught to be aggressive, even if the teaching is not direct. It can be a lack of teaching us how to deal with emotions, and that lack will, in a sense, teach us about aggression. So sometimes men seem to want to bash and not heal. Not heal in what way? What do you mean? Give me an example of that. And for those of you who are just joining us, question I asked, what barriers have you noticed? Let's say, what barriers have you noticed that make it difficult for men to understand what you need from us or from them? When you're charged with being out in the world doing the heavy lifting, you don't have time to cry and be emotional. You have to rely on logic and vices to move quickly. Good point. Good point. We are. That's our mindset a lot of the times. There's no time to, because if I'm crying and I'm being emotional, that presents a complete separate set of issues that we're going to have. So now people are going to see us crying and being emotional and stop crying like a girl, a little girl, and all the things that you may have heard of just over your life. So no, we don't have time to cry and be emotional. Definitely not, because if we're charged with doing a lot of the heavy lifting, like you said, you can't do. If you're emotional, you're not clear. So if you're emotional, if you're crying, you're not clear, and we must be focused in order to do that heavy. But many times women are dealing with the heavy lifting as well. Right. So anything that I say, it's never going to be 100% on either gender. But I'm always going to speak, even if I don't say it, from a generally society accepted perspective. So men do the heavy lifting, but just because I don't say women do, that's not the absence of my statement doesn't mean women do not. So, I won't always say that. I won't even always read it because it's implied. All right, same for women working outside the home. Maybe that's why men say we women are masculine now, but it also makes us not put up with so much bad for men. That is true. Things have changed over the decades and generations, and we got more and more women working outside the home than ever before. And I've heard that women are masculine now, but I've heard more so that they are more independent now than ever, that they don't need men like they did in the past, and that's a topic for a different conversation. But you're right. I think you're right. It makes women not put up with so much bad from men, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I think so many men seeing their mothers be strong and do stuff on their own, they think that all women should be that way. Although we like to be catered to sometimes. Are you saying that a man who sees a strong, or men don't want, or men want their women to be strong? And if that's what you're saying, elaborate on that some for me. More on bashing versus healing. Women are out here on their own to heal. The double standard in male-female relationship, women are actually left to solve everything and heal on our own. On the other hand, okay. Who do you think, what's the double standard? I read what you wrote, but what's the double standard from a healing standpoint? You said women are out there to heal on their own. How are men healing? And based on what you wrote, it sounds like that men aren't out there healing on their own. I think they feel they don't need for anything, that they got it themselves. It speaks to the man's ego that if we have it, we got it. Even if clearly we don't, it's difficult to say we don't have it, because who likes to look at themselves from a self-perspective theory type of standpoint where we're not going to view ourselves as a negative thing. We'll even make decisions and justification, but decisions, we'll make bad decisions if it'll justify us seeming like we're okay. That's a topic for another day. We are expected to put up with the good and bad of everyone and heal them, but we have to look out on our happiness with men as a byproduct of our efforts to make them happy. Okay. So it's not bidirectional. It's relational. I don't know if I want to go down that road in this particular video. I think I'm going to save that for one of my next ones. But I agree I agree with you to a point. We're expected, you said we're expected to put up with the good and bad of everyone and heal them. And that's the whole, I think men look at women as nurturers, or society looks at women as nurturers and those who care for us. So yes, our happiness with men is a byproduct of our effort to make them happy. Well, whose fault is that? If your happiness is a byproduct of what you do to make men happy, hopefully you're not blaming a man on that. And hopefully you're looking at this, that your happiness is controlled by you. You said it's a byproduct of your efforts to make them happy. So if you want happiness another way, it sounds like you can do that. You don't have to put in the effort to make them happy, and that's that's a way for you to be happy, or the only way for you to be happy. But men feel no responsibility to help heal us in return. It seems our feelings don't matter to them. Our happiness with men. Men feel no responsibility to help us in return. It seems our feelings don't matter. Why does it seem that way? Why does it seem that way? And why does it seem that way? I hear some bias and attribution type bias in that statement. Why does it feel that way? What I mean is men often feel like phantom participants in relationships. Okay. As long as they get what they want, they don't care about anyone else or the rest of their household. That's a pretty sad state of affairs if men are out there that are like that. And doubtless is the fact that if you can think of it, it probably exists, at least in a small part. You may have heard of it or seen it. Because many times it presents as such, especially when you say, I don't care how you feel. But that's true. Yeah, so if a person says, I don't care how you feel, and this is another attribution bias, where you all are, or people are attributing something and you haven't confirmed what that meant. Like me, I use that often. I don't care how you feel, because right here in this moment, it's irrelevant. It does not matter. It doesn't. And because I didn't come to you for that, I didn't bring that up to you for that, or what you're saying has no relevance to the conversation. Just because you introduced it doesn't mean it's relevant. It does not mean it's relevant. And I've gone through that with people over the years, and I'll continue to say, I don't care how you feel. Let me think of an example. If I'm discussing why something is a certain way, or if I'm just talking about me, so it's about me and why certain things are happening and everything. And then a woman throws in, well, I don't think this X, Y, and Z about your A, B, and C. It's not about you. I don't. It's not about you. So I don't care how you feel in this moment about this subject. And I think sometimes women need more, where I would say, I would have to say, I don't care how you feel about this X, Y, and Z, or I would have to go and break things down. I feel that, hey, I shouldn't have to break it down because we're adults. But going the other side of that is you can't help, or as the receiver of information, sometimes the sender of information need to be more careful in how they send information. But they do get to say how they feel, just like you get to say how you feel to them saying, I don't care. I think a lot of times men don't feel secure enough to be vulnerable with women. Absolutely. Amen to that. And that goes to from a psychodynamic perspective where things could have happened when they were younger in their life to just experiences along the way. And going back to what one person said, heavy lifting and we don't have time to be emotional. All of that plays a part. And then you got to look to from a, we as men, and I'm speaking for some of us, we as men, it's already difficult being vulnerable, first place. If we're vulnerable and it doesn't go the way we think it should go, then that's going to ruin it for a lot of women in the future. Why would I be vulnerable with you, woman, if the time that I am vulnerable, it backfires? So now, am I not going to be vulnerable or unlikely to be vulnerable in the future? Now I'm hardened in that it's very unlikely that I'm going to be vulnerable with you again. Somebody said a lot of blanket statements about men in the comments. Last statement is true. Yes, yeah, we don't feel secure enough. And I know for me, that's something where I'm already an extremely private person. I remember living by myself. Where was I living? Man, it had to be 15 years ago, so maybe. I had a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. It was just me, a couple of my dogs, and I lived way out. There was only one way in and one way out. After you reached like an 8-mile mark, once you got within 8 miles, there was only one way in and one way out. One street in, one street out, gated community. I'm so private. Everything was password protected. I had all types of locks on my door, my laptop that if you put in there the password in wrong so many times, it would shut down and you wouldn't be able to do anything for, I forgot what program that I was using, some computer geek, for lack of better words, telling me about it. But I'm that private of a person where it was just my dogs weren't going to do anything, but I had everything encrypted in my laptop and all of that. And that's how private I am. So, and I know other men who are like that. So if we're vulnerable and it backfires, it's hard to get that back. So somebody said, woman, cook, clean, take care of the kids, go to school, church. You're not going to church, and find ways to participate in the community, often by default. Whether the man is there or not, the men come around and they seem to make guest appearances. Doesn't matter if they are husband or boyfriend, they aren't really there, making them feel you have a lot going on in that statement, or a lot going on. All of that's correct. So are you saying, I'm hearing what you're saying, but what do you want men to do out of that list to better support you? Because just complaining to us, not going to get it done. Just pointing things out, I do X, Y, and Z. Sometimes you got to treat us like a book for dummies, or like we're elementary kids and you give them step by step. So saying, hey, I do X, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I'm at the point in my life now, if people are just making comments and I don't hear a question, a lot of times I won't respond. They're just telling me things and informing me. And what do you want me to do? That's not to say I wouldn't do any of those things, but what do you want me to do? But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying in that. What I think you're saying, you want men to take on some of those duties. I hadn't seen you say that yet, but if you ask and we share, then say you don't care is crazy. Yes, so it depends what we're asking. Like me, I'm extremely technical. Almost like a surgeon. And if I ask you, do you want anything from Burger King? Because I'm going to Burger King. But you're telling me about this dinner that you made. I don't care about what you made because I saw that you made it, but I don't care about that right now. I'm going to Burger King, dude. Do you want anything? So yes, in that case, I asked for your input, but it has nothing to do with the my question. It says the men come around and they seem to make, yeah, I guess that's funny. Guest appearances, and that's sad. I made a joke about it, but it's sad where you have men who will come around and in and out. Guest appearances, almost like another child to a point, or a roommate or a special guest. In relationships, women get all the work and men get all the fun. You need to change that up some. If you're saying women get all the fun, get all the work and men get all the fun, who controls that relationship? Or at least who controls what you get? You may not be able to control what they get, but you can control what you get. For somebody wrote, for every man I see with the issues spoken about in the thread, I see a woman that has taken on a guy that should have left on his bike in his mama basement in his growth before allowing him in your energy, space, and life. That's one of the things I asked earlier. Whose fault was it that certain things are happening? Because we're talking about women being independent more now than ever, and not needing a man from it, or not having to put up with bad things from men. Why then, if you don't have to put up with bad things from men, why are you putting up with bad things from men? In a relationship, a woman needs to feel valued. If you don't care about how she feels, are you supporting her and make her feel safe, or the ability to be vulnerable? No. I think the answer to that question is no. You're not supporting her and making her feel safe, or the ability to be vulnerable. I think another issue is this: is no one is taking accountability. It's always finger pointing, because we don't want to look bad. I can't think of the psychological term for that. It slips my mind, but I think it's more of a self-perception type theory that's out there, where who wants to look bad? It's hard to admit that we're wrong to begin with, but our natural defense and things happening in the brain is we hear something that makes us look bad, or it could, where we're going to flip that and say, nah, not me. Men do have to walk a fine line between being vulnerable and the hero simultaneously. I'm glad you said that. I agree with you. What's the topic again? The topic is women. What do you need from men to better support you? Chantel, broken men don't know how to do any of that. What were their examples? Now, let me not say men, because that's putting all men in that bag. So I think you're asking her for an example. No, all men, rich or poor, productive or not, they are almost all distant. We can be, but now we're getting into personality, maybe. We all have different personalities. I'm more of a introvert or intrinsic. Like I stay to myself, even in a room full of people. I'm most comfortable when I am by myself in my own mind. And it can be a party going around me, hundreds of people. I probably wouldn't even be in that situation to begin with, but I am most comfortable when I'm by myself. So I'm naturally a distant person, not for lack of caring, lack of love, lack of wanting people to feel safe or supported. It's just a character of mine. I'd ask, what barriers have you noticed that make it difficult for men to understand what you need? I think we we we've beaten that horse. Another question is, in women, we know at times we as men we can be a little hard headed or hardened without thoughts on what we think you need. And it's clear at times we're wrong. I'll admit that we're wrong. We're wrong about, I don't know, 0.5% of the time, maybe 1% of the time. And you may feel like you have to persuade us. Yeah, persuade us at times. I've had a couple of females tell me that some years ago. But do you feel that you feel that's true? Like you have to persuade us? And if so, what are your thoughts on the level of cognitive effort it takes to persuade us men? Let me keep reading some of these. Y'all ego won't let y'all accept it dumbed down. I'm not sure what that means. This is listen to me and provide listen to you and provide when I ask for help. Because if I'm doing all the above, I don't have time for me or you, just everyone else. It's not that we don't care, we don't have time. So all the things you said, going to church, helping with kids, the community, and all those things. Are you saying as long as I listen to you tell me about those things, that's enough? That you don't necessarily want me to help with any of those things? And if so, I don't know if that's fair to you. I don't know if that's fair to women, just to listen to you and provide help when I ask for help. Because if on one hand we're saying women are more independent now than ever, with independence comes you're less likely to ask for help than someone who's not independent. Again, not saying that's 100% one-to-one, but the more independent you are, the less likely you are to ask for help because it goes against the definition of independence. But I don't think it's fair if it's just for us that we need to listen to you and provide help when you ask for it, because if you're independent, what if you don't? I know women who will struggle, they'll they'll be defeated before they ask versus asking before they are defeated. Well, I guess as a man that does all of that and above and has done that since a kid for other kids, I never see it as not having help. I see it as an allowance. That's a great point. Okay. Sometimes it's not that the women are bad, the imbalanced division of labor, sometimes the lack of resources, perceived expectations, lack of family planning, couples not prioritizing their love, and there not being a vision for the relationship. Sometimes I think people prioritize the family before they do the relationship, and that's backwards. Okay, it is imbalanced as far as division of labor, sometimes a lack of resources, perceived expectations, couples not prioritizing their love, and they're putting their kids first, or family first, instead of, when you say family, I think you're talking about kids, and you're saying before the relationship, and that's backwards. I agree with that. There is an imbalanced division of labor. But again, if for men, at least some, if you're not asking, we think you have it. And I've seen relationships ruined when they put the kids first. I think when you say prioritize the family before they do the relationship, if that's what you're talking about. I've seen relationships ruined. The question is, women, what do you need from men to better support you? And the a question that I just asked, I was talking about persuasion, and I was saying how we men are, if we can admit it, and if we admit we're wrong about 0.5% or 0.5% of the time, we're wrong. Clearly, we're wrong 1%. I'm walking on a limb by saying 2% of the time we're wrong. And a woman told me some years ago that she feels like she has to persuade men to support her. And I wanted to know how much energy or cognitive effort it takes to persuade us men if you feel like you do have to persuade us. It's like when asking someone to list their strengths and weaknesses, they will have a ton of strengths and maybe one or two weaknesses, right? Right. That's a scientific fact. I did read that in the article somewhere. I don't know where. It may have been written by a man directly to other men, or it may have been on the back of a Crayola box. I don't know why I read it, but it sounds scientific, so I'm going to run with it. But how come it's so hard to say you're wrong and fix it instead of staying in your wrong? It's too many answers to that question, especially from a psychological standpoint, but I'm sorry, from a non-psychological standpoint. More from a psychological standpoint of that's the whole self-perception. We don't like to look bad. If a person has a hard time fixing it and staying in the wrong. However, a person can also feel like they are not in the wrong. Just because somebody else says that they are, that does not mean that the other person have to agree with them. Like if a woman or a person, but a woman, we're talking about women, think that I'm wrong and she is emphatic and she would put the soul of her kids on it and everything, don't matter to me. How emphatic, how passionate, how true you think you are means nothing if I don't think that I'm wrong. So it's not me staying in my wrong. That's you staying in your wrong, that you think that I'm wrong. So I have to be like the Bible says, for all you religious people, Christian. You have to be convinced in your own mind. So if I'm not convinced, I'm not wrong. How can I be wrong if I don't think that I'm wrong? I would have to see some type of proof. I would have to be convinced that I'm wrong. And then once it's shown that I'm wrong, then I will fix it. But again, you being emphatic and passionate and speaking for 15 minutes about how I'm wrong does not mean that I'm wrong. It just means you believe strongly that I'm wrong. But the other side of that is for those who know that they're wrong and choose not to fix it and stay in their wrong, it's too many variables in that, too many possibilities. Maybe they're doing it out of spite. Maybe they really don't like you. Maybe it's too many things. But I will say, if they know that they're wrong, they should be fixing it. I, as a woman, need to know how you feel so I can be cautious, aware of that, and find ways to help you without enabling or weakening you. Or weakening you. Above, I cite reasons for the imbalance. I need to make a correction. The imbalance does not mean men are bad. Okay, I'm glad you cleared that up. I don't think they are independent at all. You don't think so? You think women are still dependent? All right. As a woman, I need to be allowed to be us no matter how that looks like. We have so much on our plate. Help us when we ask or don't. Allow me a safe space where I can get a chance to be vulnerable. So that's the thing. I will say, and again, and for those of you who didn't hear me say it earlier, when I make statements, I can't speak for all of anybody. I can't say it's only men or it's only women or it's only this race or anything like that. So please keep that in mind. With that, I will say that men in general, if you don't ask us, we may not do it. So if you have so much on your plate, yes, we definitely should be helping when you ask. But when you say or don't ask, I think that's what you meant by or don't. How are we to know what it is you need from us? Yes, we could see it, but we're looking at you all as independent. So ambiguity happens and we're just unsure. That's a conversation I had with my brother girlfriend. Women always minimize what they require from a man, and then they get what they get. Absolutely. Absolutely. Whose fault is it if you're not getting what it is that you need? Regardless of why you're not getting it, whose fault is it? You can't on one hand complain he doesn't do this, he's that, and everything. But then on the other side, you're I'm strong, I'm independent, I don't need you, I have it all under control, regardless of why you're not telling us. And that goes into another question where I've had women tell me directly, they've told me they don't ask certain things, they don't say certain things. And this has been, I don't know, for the last 10, 12 years. And from all walks of life, from different cultures and backgrounds to different relationships in my life, meaning it could be a friend, it could be a coworker, whomever. But they look at or they say, hey, I don't talk to him, I don't ask him certain things because he's going to get mad, he's going to get angry. And I would always ask them, or usually ask them, how do you know? Oh, because X, Y, and Z. And it got me to thinking that how does a man's disposition or nature influence how much you communicate with them? How much does their disposition or nature influence how you communicate with men, or how much you can communicate with men? I can put 100 women in relationship that have children in a room, and 80% of them came into a relationship with the family already, herself and children. Okay. Okay. That's life. The older you are, I guess, the more likely that is. Again, none of what I said necessarily means the man is bad. It's just that theirs is. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a imbalance in relationships in general, and that goes to the whole, to some degree, roles, right? Where we have either society driven, biblically driven, or whatever religion you're in, or just cultural. For example, where there are roles. Men do X, Y, and Z. Men do outside work, cutting grass, etc. Except for gardening, I guess. Taking out the trash, those type of things where women do things inside the house. Then you bring these guys in your family expecting them. Okay, so let me go back and read your previous one and come back to that. What did you say? I could put up 100 women in relationships that have children in a room, and 80% of them come into a relationship with their family already. Then you bring these guys in your family expecting them to take on half of the responsibility. He may not be equipped for anything but good sex and some company. Yes, I do think there is an over reliance on what a man should do in a relationship without considering what they can do. Too much, somebody said, I'm listening, ladies. Too much time because y'all say I don't see it that way instead of seeking to understand. What was your previous conversation? I'm not sure what that's saying. We need time with you to be loved, be beautiful, be your lover, and enjoy you, and prioritize that and plan responsibilities around that as much as possible. Okay. Understanding it's a two-party situation. Yeah, so it's a bi-directional type thing, relational. We want and need to be the apple of your eye. I think I prefer grapefruits a little more, but I get what you're saying. And to enjoy you being our hero, but trusting us enough to be your queen and nurture and heal you without nature. Okay, so who's healing you? I think you're the one earlier was talking about women have to heal themselves, and you're healing us. So if we trust you enough that you're healing us, do we have to do the same back to you? It says, but can't we have our feelings without a person saying, I don't see that way, it's not your feeling or your perception? Of course, we all, what is it, almost 8 billion people in the world? Don't we all have that human right, even if some countries don't allow you to voice them? But we all have a human right, correct, to feel whatever it is we want to feel. And a person, you say, can't we have our feelings without a person saying, I don't see it that way? No, because you have the right to feel a certain way, and they have a right to say that they don't see the way that you do. That's what makes life. I don't know if I'm understanding that correctly. But can we have our feelings without a person saying, I don't see that way? Sure, if it happens, but you're entitled to your feelings, they're entitled to theirs. They're just letting you know that your feeling, they disagree with that. They can't say that you don't feel that or that your feeling is wrong. Your feeling can be based on fallacies and be based on inaccurate information. But what you feel and what you perceive, that is completely on you. If it's right or wrong, that's a different topic. We need to feel that our ability to love you, be your lover, your friend, and our wisdom makes you better for yourself and us. And if I don't do that for you, I don't want to be with you. Okay, so what if you want to? We need to feel that our ability to love you, be your lover, your friend, and our wisdom makes you better for yourself. What if I don't care if you make me better for myself? You say you don't want to be with that person if they feel that you don't make them better. What if they don't need you to make them feel better, make them better for themselves? Does that change anything? Somebody wrote, T, how long does it take to get where you want to go with a man? How long are these folks courting before getting serious with someone? I was friends with my wife for years before getting involved. That's a good point. I think that's very subjective. Some of us may wait 4 days. I said four because you put before. Some of us may wait 4 months. I know men, we can be very strategic. We will wait and wait and wait. We'll keep living, but we'll wait. No price is too steep as long as we get what we want. Independence is not an African system, and it counterproductive to love. It doesn't exist. Hmm. I think I know where you're going, but I elaborate on that. I don't want to be the one to say that. Choose me because our mere presence makes each other better. Men and women minimize each other. Men for money and women for sex and domestication. So we both then are in the right and in the wrong. Choose me because our mere presence makes you. That takes a long time to find and nurture. I really believe. Oh, let me go. I know I don't. Because I've been programmed to the response. Okay. It's easier not to share due to the fear of being let down by his nature. All right. So I want to pause for a second and talk about that. His nature, his disposition. So, for instance, you may know he's going to say, stop complaining, or will dismiss what you're saying with little regard to the substance of what it is that you're saying with your words. Or you may say, oh, he drinks too much for you to have any conversation that would spark really anything that lasts. my question, is it possible, women, that you're making some incorrect inferences about the men? Like, are you misreading how men are? You think that they are going to say you're complaining, or they would dismiss what you say no matter what. But it, it is it possible they only dismiss a certain type of conversation, right? Or 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 a like a certain type of conversation, maybe a certain subject, or is it based on how maybe it's how you present the conversation to them? Is it possible you attribute things to their disposition when it may be uh, something something else? And I ask because of something I've seen a few times over the years. Women see a man's behavior as their disposition, eh, more attitude, more of an attitude type thing. In those cases, one person or the woman wasn't certain. Even if they think they knew, they couldn't say with absolute accuracy that they were 100% correct. But they 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 see the man's behavior and they attribute it to their disposition, where where their attitude came from. It's it's what we call in the psychological field. It's attitudinal attribution error. In this particular case, because you aren't certain where the man's behavior came from or emanated from, you may explain that behavior as an internal uh, disposition or their nature, as opposed to something such as like situational factors. And let me give you some examples. So let's say you're on a date and you see you see somebody drop their wallet or drop some money. Your date goes and picks up the money. The person that dropped it, just kept walking. Your date calls their name out, picks up the money, and gives them their money. Did he do that because he's honest? Now you may make that assumption and think they're an honest person. And another one. So suppose you go over there or you see him recycling. You go to their house, you see if they're recycling bottles, for example. You may think they're concerned about the environment, right? And so in these cases, you attribute their behavior to their internal disposition. And what do I mean by attribute or attribution? It's inference or reading that a person will make as the reason an event took place, right? The reason behind their behavior or a person's behavior. Now we use attribution to justify the unknown, what we don't know, or the uncertain. We kind of like put pieces together like a puzzle, so to speak, so that our stories or that situation is complete. Now going back to my example about why your date returned the money or why you saw them recycling and thinking that they're honest and care about the environment. What if you're wrong? Maybe they returned the money because they want to date with you and they wanted to impress you. Maybe they recycling not because they care about the environment, but because there's a cash reward. So that's what attitudinal attribution area is, where you're explaining or assigning behavior as their disposition or their character. So is it possible, lady, that it's not their disposition or nature? Could it be something else? Going back to a previous statement, I really believe that we all, men and women, should be our best for ourselves, and we will attract the person that fits us. We all need to prioritize ourselves. Fewer things I think I would agree with more than that particular statement. Like for me, I'm all about natural. One of the first things I either directly state or say it in a roundabout way, but it comes out eventually early on if I don't say these exact words. I need you to be yourself so I can like and love or fall in love with you. I don't care about the first date interview impressions. I need you to be you because I need to be able to decide if I like that person. I can't have it where 3 days, even 3 days later, but 3 weeks, 3 months later, I see a different side of you. So that's a good point. Often we are just following our program of convenience. Then we get in unbalanced relationship because we are unbalanced. That's powerful. But if I'm sharing my feelings, I'm not asking on your perception. I'm just asking you to hear me. Okay, right. So if you need somebody to hear you, say that. If you need men to just hear you, then say that. Because men, we naturally want to fix, or we naturally want to respond. But if you're just sharing your feelings, and then it depends how it's presented. For instance, if I'm telling you about some problems that I'm going through, and that's it, I don't really care to hear about your problems because then you're making it about us or you some when it's only about me right now. So at what point are you sharing your feelings and why you're sharing your feelings? Did I ask you? That's another point. If you ask me, hey, what's going on? I can tell something's wrong. And I tell you, and then you say, well, I've been through it too, and I'm going through this, this, and this. I didn't ask you. Let me ask you. Let me get to the point of that I asked you, because that may generate a, did I ask her? Well, I don't care at the moment. It could. Not saying that everybody would, but it could. I was asked, how long should you wait to introduce a man to your children? How long should you wait to have sex? I said minimum a year. I say a lot longer, but a minimum a year. If he turns out right, no harm. If he turns out wrong, no harm. My actions when choosing who to give our energy and time to has become quite detrimental to the entire community. Our communities are a direct result of poor decisions. I think life isn't hard. I don't think life is hard. It's people who complicate life. And some of that is in what you're saying. I think it's going to be subjective to how long a person should have to wait to meet the person's children, because we all know relationships can go fast or slow. It going fast does not 100% equate to it's going to fail. It going slow does not necessarily mean it's going to last. So that's a very subjective thing. It can be cultural, it can be regional, it can be based on family values, etc. Because what if he was the right person, but based on standards that you have, he just missed out? Let's say he feels no more than 9 months, and you said 1 year, 12. So you missed out. He was willing to wait, but not wait as long. So it's a very subjective thing. If you're prioritizing yourself and you know yourself, then you can trust the decisions you make. But can we always trust the decisions that we make? Because if we're making decisions based on information that we have at the moment, based on things that we see currently, what if we're wrong in our thinking of who we are? Or sometimes we don't know who we are. I agree in general what you're saying. You can trust the decisions you make, but what if we don't know what it is we want? What if we still don't know who we are? When we look in that mirror, we think we're seeing us, but we're seeing other people, their version of us, their thoughts, their beliefs of us. So we're trying to stay in that in group. So we're being more like them, doing some of the things that they do and acting how they're acting, because we want to be a part of that group as opposed to knowing who you truly are. And then that could be an age thing where I'm continuing to evolve and find out who I am. And so I trust decisions that I make, but as I continue to evolve, I may go back and say, hey, if I could do this over again. Now, at the time I made it, it was a good decision. I thought I knew myself, or at least then I did know myself. But if I would go back, if I could ever say, if I can go back, I would do X, Y, and Z again, then probably shouldn't have trusted that decision. And that could mean that I didn't really know myself. There's no one number, right? I have asked, and the response is always the same. But if he says, I'm like this or have always been this way, yeah, so that's the whole disposition. And so you can take away from a person say, I'm like this and I've always been this way. So yes, that you can associate, but there's still other contexts. I've always been this way. Like I've always been a quiet person. Clearly, I'm not quiet right now. So I am, context matters. So the context, the sentence, the question that you asked matters. And just changing a couple of words may yield a different result. It very well may, because I've always been quiet. I've always been to myself. I didn't care to make friends for a variety of reasons, but I've always been to myself and by myself. And hate talking. You know, I've preached before, I've talked before, small, large classes, all of where I'm in front of people. Don't really care for it, but I do it. However, I would say I've always been this way. But if the question was asked, let's say you added a couple of words to it, I may not say I've always been this way. So that matters. Now, as a partial answer to the question the speaker posed, women, what do you need from men? Same I need from a woman. Be honest and talk and talk and talk. Make your intent and desires known. So be honest and talk. So as a man, are you saying you want the woman to talk and talk and talk? I don't think I've ever heard a man ever say that. Nope. I don't even think I've heard women say it to other women that they want women to talk and talk and talk, like friends or whatever. You grounded me with that one. I don't know what to say to that. We need to borrow men's strength and nonchalance. I agree that some women could benefit from that. Men are normally more inclined to give a woman all she wants and needs, or he feels she's a woman. He can't pull any okie doke. So if he feels for a woman he can play, it's over. Perfect balance of masculine and feminine energy. I think that's a subjective thing. Perfect balance of masculinity and feminine energy. I do think that's a very subjective thing. Where, because me as a man, I would want more masculine energy than female energy. Woman who can't be fooled, example, if you will. Please give me an example. Not woman who can't be fooled. Women that aren't having it. He had to see you as a loss he's not willing to take. He's got to be a calculating, a wise brother. Other than that, if he doesn't care, then yeah. So some of it is that way. We can care a lot, but just don't care about some of the actions. We can care for the woman and not care about some of the things that she does. So you do have to be careful of that. Earlier, I was talking about disposition and assigning what you see or attributing what you see to their disposition. Could it be situational factors, women, that influence how you communicate with the men in your life? For instance, like a lack of free time, or you two work opposing shifts, so you really can't talk because one of you are always tired, or maybe kids are always around. Are there any situational factors that men should, or that you've noticed, that influence how you communicate with the men in your life? How is she to know if you make a blanket statement? So this is where knowing the person you're with, context clues can come into play, and knowing the person. So for me, women in my life, if they don't know that I'm technical, or they know it, but they don't apply it to all of our conversations, they are going to miss out. They are going to lose out on some things. They just are. And sometimes I'm in the mood to clear it up for them. Other times I don't even be thinking about it. And if I were, I would clear it up for them. But see, I'm extremely technical. And it's about knowing the person. Well, you can ask them specific questions. I've dealt with women who, toward the end of our relationship, they've realized that they needed to be more specific with me. Because if you ask me a general question, I'm going to give you a general answer. If you specify, there's some specificity in your comment, in your question, you're going to get a specific answer. When I say feminine and masculine energy, I'm not speaking on a Western understanding. Water has masculine and feminine energy. It's rough, it can kill, but it gives life and be calm or calming. Got it. Yes. Okay. Thanks for clearing that up. I think I'm still on the masculine side, but based on your response, I'll come down some. But that's a powerful example. And if he says 1 minute I feel this way, then the next is different, who has time for that? Clearly, you don't have time for that. And if you don't have time for it, then don't put up with it. Again, like I said earlier, life isn't difficult or complicated. We make it complicated. If you don't have time for that, please don't make time for it. Because whose fault is it if you're putting up with stuff that you don't have time for? Can't blame the other person, because they're going to keep being them, right? So if you don't have time for it, then don't put up with it. And life is that simple. If she's being specific and you have a moment and shut her down, why is it worth pushing it till the moment has passed? I agree. Sometimes you're going to lose in life. So sometimes if they are being specific, if you're being specific and and you get shut down, it's up to you if you're going to push it or not. And that's definitely your choice. But going back to my question, are there any situational factors that influence how you communicate with men? Somebody said, if I don't care. For me, if you hear you don't care, then you shut down. That's a lot of people. If I hear I don't care, I guess I shut down. Oh, I don't shut down from a conversationalist standpoint, but that subject ends. We're gonna talk about something different. Yeah, I don't care about that. If we change subjects, if I hear, hey, I don't care, then got it. Say no more. Anything else you want to talk about? That's how I end those conversations. They say no, not at the moment, because they are still in their feelings. Then all right, now I get to go back to doing or being how I naturally like being, which is in my own thoughts. Yes, if I'm met with I don't care or the harsh response, I shut down and stop sharing because he clearly doesn't care about it or my feelings at all. That's where you're wrong. This is an attribution bias. And what I was talking about earlier, attribution, attitudinal error. But it's an attribution bias where you are attributing him saying he doesn't care about that thing means he doesn't care for your feelings at all. That's an error. You can't know that because you didn't ask him about the at all part, about your feelings at all. He may not care about it, but to say your feelings at all, he cannot care to have the conversation, but still care about the feelings. Hey, because That happens to me frequently. So I'm a testimony to that. I may not care about what we're talking about, but I can care about how you feel about it. I still just don't want to talk about it. I think my communication is based on the other person. I speak in their language because I expect the same when it's my turn. So then they say, how do you, when is it ever about you? And speaking your language, because it's not, I don't think it's fair for you just to be speaking in their language. So when do you ever get to, when is it ever about you? It's frozen for me. I'm not sure what that means. But it's my feelings and how it's being presented. It's my reality. Yes, absolutely. So yes, it is your reality. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where people, they attribute things and you can feel whatever you want to feel, even if it's based on fallacy, if it's based on inaccurate information. And you can stay in that reality. You can definitely be in that reality by yourself. And if you're like me, you love it, right? Because I love being in my own mind. So it's up to you if you want to stay in a reality that's based on false information. Absolutely. But that's not hurting them. It's unlikely hurting them. It's if anybody's going to be hurt, it's going to be you or nobody. But my experiences tell me, no, they're not going to care if you're staying in your reality based on false information because we're all grown-ups. I take time to learn in person as best as I can. Okay, so I hear that. But when you said you think your communication is based on another person, when is it ever about you? Oh, when I want to vent, which is not often. Okay, when you want to vent, it's about you. But I'm just talking about everyday or just normal, non-venting conversation. How can we get it where it's not about the other person? I'm saying the other person is the man. Where it's about you? How can we get it there? For the sake of answering the questions, I want a relationship where I'm beautiful, have a good set life, and we are comfortable, best friends, and having fun always and accomplishing. Someone that is controlled by you, where you're beautiful, that is your control. You have a good set life. You play a major part in that. And we are comfortable. Again, you play a major part in that. The best friend thing and having fun always and accomplishing goals. That sounds like a very nice relationship. They sure don't care at all. I think you're talking about caring about your feelings, and that's fine. If it's like me, I don't care if if you want to stay in your reality that you think that I don't care at all, and that's fine. You can please stay there because if you're in your reality, I'm imagining that you're there because you want to be there. If you want to be in a place, then you're happy to be in a place. Because who's in a place who wants to stay in a place where they're not happy? So if you want to stay in a place where you think something that's even in your reality, you think you're right, you're wrong because the other person is the one that has that feeling, right? They're the one that's either confirming or reject your feeling. So if they tell you that no, you're wrong, but you still feel it anyway, that's all on you. It's like telling me I'm not a male, I'm not a black man. Oh well, I think you're a black. I think you're a black woman. All right, feel what you want to feel. But I'm telling you, what I am. Correction. Having fun always and accomplishing correction. Said sex life. Oh, having a good sex life. You know, I saw set life, but I saw set life, but I said, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. I personally almost never had that problem in any of my relationship. My love language is acts of service, and the man presented me with this before in doing a relationship. Okay, a sure don't is based on your question. Yes. So if you again, and I can go all day on a person feeling what they feel based on inaccurate information, even if they interpret something a certain way. It's just like you can't measure back pain, right? I can't compare my back pain to yours. I can't say mine is hurt worse than yours, and vice versa. So if you feel that a person don't care about your feelings at all, you can feel that way, but it can still be based on inaccurate information. Women, do you feel you need to train men in order to get them to understand you or get through to them? Almost like an operant conditioning, which uh, which it, if you don't know, this is an approach where behavior consequences influence future action. You know, for instance, let's say you decide to cook dinner, or you want to talk. You need to have a serious talk. And one day you decide to cook dinner, or the very first time you do it, one of the first times you two cook dinner, you eat, and you see he's responsive when he's eating or as he's finishing up eating. And you're able to have a serious conversation after that. You see this work, so you see it worked, you got results that you're hoping for. You kind of make that a habit. When you cook, you make sure he's fed, and you have those serious conversations. So that's an operant conditioning. Do you feel there's anything like that that you have to do to get us men to understand you? Says you are blessed. Trudy said, I pray you stay blessed. Yes, that's not everybody's testimony where they don't have the issue of communication like that because you communicate based on their style. Making him, it took you, it's not easy. It took me making them feel secure and loved as well. And that's important. And I can tell women when you're communicating with us men, if we feel a lot of things like we're made to feel like that we're not men or we're not loved or we're not supported, we will turn off, and it's already hard for us to turn on, but we will turn off and good luck getting us to come back around from a being vulnerable standpoint and communicating effectively a standpoint. I feel like everyone has to learn the other and see what works and what doesn't, not necessarily train. I use the word train because of how it was presented to me a handful of years ago, and that they said they feel like they have to train. Well, we can use whatever word you would like, but train men, or almost like teaching, but training men or doing certain things in order to have certain type of conversations. It was really hard for him as well, dealing with the light skin. Awful. Okay, it was really hard for him as well, dealing with a light skin, waffle complexion, Pan African, mean woman is very difficult. It sounds like it could be difficult, but how somebody wrote, but how does that go with what women need? Become it becomes about him. How does what go? No, I'm not sure. Women and their resentment. Learning each other and training each other are two different things. Right. So yeah, so don't look at training from a like you're training a pet. And I'm not talking about like classical conditioning. But so I'll use a different word if that I think that's causing an issue. I'll even use your word, learning. You've learned that if you cook and you eat and he eats, as he's finishing up, he's full, satisfied, you're able to have these conversations. Have you learned, has there been times where have you figured out what's the best way to communicate with men in your life? I do think training is kind of fair because I'm not saying train like they're a child, but however, I can see where it can cause some confusion or it can be looked at with a negative connotation. But you have to teach or train people how to treat you. So I'll use learn. Have you figured out, have you learned when or learned some ways where you can best communicate? Or why do we have to figure out what's the best way? You don't have to figure it out. You're just never, it'll be difficult, I should say, not never. It'll be difficult for you. You're making it more difficult for you if you don't know what's the best way. That's with anything, though, right? In life, where you're gonna, if you don't figure out what's the best way to doing something, you could be wasting valuable time that you don't have. And I think you're the one earlier said who has time for that. So you, one who values time, you are one who I imagine based on what you said, you value time. You don't like to waste it by you saying who has time for that. Why would you not want to know the best way to do something? When will he try to figure out the best way? So we're talking about women and what they need support. We can have a totally different conversation about what men need and figure out the best way. But the best way for women to be supported is not for a man to figure out the best way of when to communicate because he's not the one in need. The women are. Maybe try the worst way. I personally think if you don't really care for someone, leave them alone. If they are not worth learning them to love them, get a trick. I hate candy. Trick or treat. I hate candy. No, but I agree. If you don't, if they're not worth learning them to love them, I mean, right. And it goes with the whole taking the time to figure out the best way. So I, as a woman, need him to try to figure out the best way to support me. Right, but we're not talking. I was talking about conversations. So this is the whole. So to this, I say I don't care what you're saying right now because it does not go with what I asked. This is one of those This is one of those times where if I'm having a conversation with a person, I'm like, hey, that has nothing to do with what I'm asking. What I'm asking is learning. If you learn a way or when is the best time to communicate, you're saying you you need him to try to figure out the best way to support you. That's unless you're talking about something totally different that I didn't ask. I'm not talking about that. But separately, if you need him to try to figure out the best way to support you, now you're leaving it in his hands. You get what you get. So I hear you. You would tell your man, hey, or men in your life, I need you to figure out the best way to support me. All right, no problem. I will figure that out. However, please, it would be a grave mistake if you come back and say, no, that's not it. That is not it. All right, so I tried, or you can just tell me you want me to figure this out. You just said we don't have time for game, or you didn't just say it, but you're like, who has time for that? Who has time for trying to figure something out when you can just tell them? Who has time for that? So what do you have to do? Chantel, how is he watching the support from yourself, your family, your circle? A man will support you first based on your support system, then with his way of support and make changes. Okay. So you rely on what's already there and then you come in and pick up the pieces. Is that what you're saying? The best way is to just be open and honest about what you want. I agree to that. Another question, ladies. How can how can a man find common ground with you? Kind of an abstract question. So think abstractly. How can men or how can a man find a common ground with you? Too many times we think it's the other person. We have to look within first. Yeah, I love saying, and well, preachers to whoever's listening. If you're without, look within. There's certain things lacking that you want or missing. Look within. Look within. I don't they can with how so many think. Tranisha, I don't know what you're saying. I don't think they can with how so many think. I'm not sure what you're responding to. When men and women realize that both simply want to be loved and respected, we will find common ground. Okay. How can men find common ground with you? That's one response. When men and women realize that both simply want to be loved and respected, we will find common ground. But here's a problem with that. How I want to be loved may not be how you want to be loved. What's considered respectful for me may not be what's respectful for you. So that goes to the whole learning the other person, what goes against the one person who said, well, he needs to figure out how to best support, and which kind of went against learning the woman learning the man. That person said, well, the man needs to figure it out in so many words. So it kind of goes against that. But I agree. Simply want to be loved and respected, but it's finding out what is love to that person. What does it mean to be loved? What does it mean to be respected? Because respected for me will be different than what you consider respectful for you. When men and women are so afraid of being hurt and lack maturity that we're constantly trying to win a fight rather than getting and understanding about what's righteous and fair. It's about points. It's about points to some degree in my experiences, in that we are trying to, like you said, we're focused on the wrong thing. We're focused on we're competitive. We're competitive and we're focused on the wrong thing. So instead of let's fix this, what's right and what's fair, it's all about one up. It's all about who can get their point across the best or the most. It's all about who gets the last word or who got the last word. It's all about who got the most points across. It takes that time to learn what your partner needs. Yes, it does take time to learn what your partner needs. But but on the other hand, you were saying who has time for something. So if everything takes time and you're okay with that, you also have to be okay with, you want them to figure it out, them being wrong. You can't be upset because they don't do what you want it a certain way or say something a certain way. You can just tell them, but you're leaving it up to them to figure out. So there are some thoughts on both sides of the fence there that I'm hearing just and reading some of your comments and everything. Some comments you're on one side where you are going to tell them directly certain things, but on the other side you're not. Yes, as your view is not their view. It takes conditional love to do that. I'm not sure what you're saying, but yes, we all have different views. I think a lot of people need training, oh, there's that word again, on how to love and have healthy relationships. Not too many people have examples, because we are a summation of our experiences, aren't we? And if we're going to love based on what we think. We're going to love based on what we think, what we know. And if you're leaving it up to us to figure it out, we may fail. But I agree that we do need training on how to love and have healthy relationships. And I think a person you can get that from, a lot of times, is the person that you're with. because I, as a teacher, can teach you on how or train on how to love and help relationships, but it may not be the type of loving and healthy relationship that you need. So you need to hear from the person and have that person tell you what's love to them, what's a healthy relationship to them. To fight, to share your view when they constantly shut you down is why I said, who has time for that? Yes, right. So to fight and constantly shut you down is why I said, who has time for that? Right. So, yes, who has time for when you're trying to communicate and you're being shut down and everything. But on the flip side, you also said that it's up to the man to figure out how to best support you. You also said that. So I'm using the time. Who has time for that? Who has time to just, when you can easily tell us so that we know we get it right, whereas we're taking all this time to try to get something right, but we keep getting it wrong. Yeah, my perfect balance is 80% masculine and 20% feminine. It's all fire signs. Aries, Sagittarius, Leo. Okay. Uh, uh, that sounds like a statement that should have came in much earlier. Much earlier. Much earlier. Any other comments about how men, ladies, can find common ground with you? I have a question. I'm gonna wait. Tranisha said, I think a lot of people need training on how to love and have healthy relationships. I gave my opinion on best practices and getting that training from. Who do you think should be teaching or training? Is it in a personal or in a relationship or like a therapist or someone like that? So, any more comments? I think a lot of people need outside help, someone who is not biased. Okay, good point. But inside doesn't equal bias. It can, and it's often, unfortunately, viewed as bias. But and just a perception of bias, I think, which really draws or pushes people away from, hey, you can't be biased because you're inside or you're too connected or too close to the situation. But outside, inside does not equate to someone being biased. Sometimes people need that outside source to help them work through things. I agree. I do agree. But then, and it's probably my next topic, I think, we, especially as Black people, we don't like that. We don't care for therapists. But another topic, another day. People don't tend to want to hear their partners or accept their point of view. Extremely true, because each person thinks they're right a lot of the times. Each person thinks that they're right. So if I go to an outside person who really doesn't know the situation or doesn't know the situation at all, I see them as fair and impartial. That may not even be the case. But we believe it's the case, and that's what matters. I think more to us than if they actually are. We believe that they are more likely to be unbiased and impartial than the other person in the relationship. And I get that. I understand that. I understand that. The outside source has to just be what you said, a non-biased party, and in most cases, someone that is an example of what you want. It could be, yes, yes, a lot of cases. I can't say most is throwing me off, but that is a likelier, I guess, desire if you have someone who's on the outside and they are example of someone that you want. Even though the truth is, I'm not biased and she is. Uh, I think the statement itself would be a biased statement. And many need a long break from relationship. It took for me to be totally celibate for 2 years to tame myself and my passionate desires. Okay. Okay. All right. I know a woman did that for 10 years. What was this? It was about 15 years ago. 10 years. I put an end to all of that. All right. Absolutely not. You're in denial, Enigma. I think he is in denial, even though the truth is he's not biased and she is. Maul, if you're a porn star, just say that. Who is Maul? What are you talking about? What does any of that even mean? I think you must be on an iPhone because they be typing stuff for you. I heard. Hmm. Any other comments about common ground? I do have a question I was saving. I'm in denial, actually. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, if you're a star, dude, I mean, no, no judgment. So my next question is, it's more about conflict, where conflict in relationships. That seems to be a topic that's kind of undertone to different people that I talk to. And we know that chronic experiences of something such as constant fussing or negative arguments put you at risk for a lot of psychological issues or messes with your psychological well-being, right? Such as depression and anxiety and isolation from the person or people you constantly fuss with, or even psychological distress. And this can lead to things such as, and you may do some of these ladies already, but this can lead to things such as, or you would manage your conflict by, I don't know, some type of verbal outlet, such as crying or yelling when you're alone or talking to people you trust. I've even seen how people who manage their conflict via some type of destructive behavior. If that's sexual promiscuity, if it's drinking, doing drugs. And another element to conflict is that it can be harmful, right, to relationship if there's no attuning to the other person and what they are saying. Attuning to the other person during a discussion, I think, is an important part of providing that support that people need, especially that women need, being attuned to what they're saying. So my question, ladies, is how can men reduce the amount of conflict in our conversations with you? I was Enigma, stop snitching. Yeah, that's not right. I kickbox and talk to friends. Okay. Yes, that's an outlet. And that's the whole, well, how can we, and that's my question where it's getting to, how can men, what what can we do to reduce the amount of conflict? Because while you have at least one healthy response to conflict in kickboxing, there are some that are destructive, even if you don't think. It can be, I don't know, eating ice cream. It can be just sitting around all day moping and not doing anything, not doing the exercise that you normally would have. It could be you shut down mentally, and then consequently that may turn into a physical shutdown. It can be other destructive behavior, like kickboxing and boxing your partner. Okay, right. Like fighting your partner. I think that's what you're saying. Fighting your partner. Well, what are some ways we can reduce the conflict? So I don't have time for all of that. Somebody said earlier, I don't have time for all of that. As I continue to age, I have less and less time to fight. I'm not talking about physical fighting because I'm always down for that, but just mental fighting. I have less and less time for that. I can't speak for me, but for me, what the hell does that even mean? I can't speak for me, but for me, maybe you're saying men. I can't speak for men, maybe. But for me, I have to be allowed to suffer in silence before I can come to my woman with my feeling or issues. Oftentimes, I have to make sure my issues are valid and not just that 20% feminine energy trying to multiply. Okay. so, okay. So, are you saying that you want to make sure it's valid and not just the 20% feminine energy trying to multiply? Are you saying the feminine energy is invalid? So if it were to multiply, it would be invalid? I need you to clear that up for me, please. I don't think we should avoid conflict. Well, conflict can be healthy, but it has to be healthy. Maybe he can write and leave the letter so she can ponder on it without it being a reactionary situation. That is a great thing. There are other things you can do. Like one thing I recommend to people is having some type of, if it's a pen, if it's a ruler, something where, hey, we take turns talking. Whoever has that, they are the one who has the floor, and it's limited to a certain amount of time, 2-3 minutes or so, and then give it back. So there are different things you can do, but that's a good one. Writing a letter and leaving it. That's what I meant. I typed too fast for myself. Okay. Slow down then some. The view of conflict is not always negative. Right. So that's what I was saying. Conflict is not always negative. It can be negative, but that is extremely subjective. It is extremely subjective. That's extremely subjective. It's not always negative. But if one person thinks it's negative, then it's likely to end the conversation or steer down a path that maybe it shouldn't go. I think conflict should be dealt with in a moment, and if no resolution, take a break and revisit another time, but don't let too much time pass. So I agree with parts of what you're saying. Don't let too much time pass. Try to deal with it in the moment. Sometimes the moment is the conflict, where the moment is responsible for the conflict. If the moment is responsible for the conflict, the last thing you want to do is deal with it if the moment is the result, if the conflict is a result as a result of the moment. So it really depends on what it is. And then other variables in that equation, right? Such as, are you two alone? What is the conflict? How is it best addressed? Is it best addressed alone? Is it best addressed right then and there? Are you too heated? Is your mind wondering too much? Are you too livid? Then it's best to not do it. But I think in general, the sooner you can deal with something, the better. My response was to the sister saying men just shut down and don't say anything. So I'm saying I have to be left alone to gather my thoughts and feelings, or I'll just sit around like I'm complaining. Okay. And who likes a complainer? Both parties have to be willing to listen and value the other view. If it's too much, then agree to come back to it. I agree. Right. So if both parties, all it takes is one, if we're talking about just two people, all it takes is just one to not want to listen at the moment and hear what the other person is saying, then it's already too much and you have to come back to it, if at all. But if both parties, I agree, power statement. True, and that's where communication comes in, depending on the situation, right? Communication meaning telling your person that now isn't the time, etc. For me, and I've heard some people say it's a bad habit, others say they like it. I love it because I do. I'll just leave the conversation. I'm starting to do that more and more. If I'm communicating with someone and it's just going down a path, and if I can't see an immediate resolution, and that's all it takes is one person not to be able to see an immediate resolution, I'll leave the conversation. Meaning, I'll change it immediately. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of saying something or typing, I'll change it immediately because the alternative to that is something regretful. So I'm learning to, and I'm still trying to learn the process of learning to not leave the conversation immediately. I'm still learning to just hear what the other person is saying and then leave the conversation if I still don't see it. But I'm having a difficult time with that. So I just leave the conversation as opposed to saying something regretful, such as cursing or, I don't know, saying something regretful. So I'm learning how to do that. But they need to come back. Don't say, I don't want to hear nothing else about it, period. Well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't want to hear anything because coming back to the conversation is not going to be, time is not going to change it. Time, it may not be what's needed or the missing ingredient. It could just be the conversation. For instance, if I don't want to talk about why I failed at something because of how it makes me feel about myself, you know, if I'm hard on myself and I can't, and I hate whatever, I hate failing, and I don't even want to talk about failure in any, even if you're trying to cheer me up, oh, it's okay, you can do it, and blah blah blah. I may not ever want to talk about it. So yes, a person can say they don't want to talk about it, period. And that's an example that may be one-sided. It could be regardless of the conversation, where it emanated from, where it started, whoever originated the conversation or the idea. The other person can say, hey, I don't want to talk about it, period, because they know them better than you know them. And they may be right in their feeling. And that they know how they're going to respond to this subject if it ever comes up. But on the other side, saying that can cause conflict. And we know what conflict can do. The problem with these conflicts is because people want it their way and don't want to empathize with other people's feelings, right? We all want things our way to a degree, right? We're all selfish to a degree. And that's going to be another topic for another day. But you're right. We want it we want it our way. We think we are right. We think we're right more than we're wrong. We think that our way, more often than not, is the better or best way. Why? Because we thought of it. And although your feelings matter, they don't matter as much as mine. And I think that's just a human trait. Sometimes it's more so about being heard and understood too. Right. So that's circling back to some of the things that we discussed earlier. telling us, and not leaving it up to us to figure out what we need to support you. If you just wanted to listen, just tell us. And a man can try their best to understand you, but what if they want to understand you and can't? Not because they disagree with your perspective or your point of view, but it's just not making sense to them. What they want to understand. Sometimes you're just dealing with people that aren't going to get it right. Right. It's a risk you take when dealing with people on any level. You just have to hope you're the type that see it early. So we all like people who can understand, who can relate, who have the cognitive ability to process information to a degree where what you say they can understand. Some people just aren't going to get it. And I'm a firm believer in that there are no difficult subjects. They're just difficult communication, right? So I can teach or you can learn astrophysics. It can be taught, but can I communicate it to you in a way where you're going to understand? And the answer may be no. It may be no, and a person just may not get it. And we have to be aware of that. We have to know that, and even if they're, regardless of how intelligent they are, or smart, or how gifted they are, or their ability to just get things that other people can't, we can't deny the fact that even that person may not get everything. And you have to be okay with that if you're staying with that person. Most people don't want to feel controlled. You ain't about to tell me what I'm about to do right now. Especially in this culture, these Western, especially Western cultures and everything, where we're independent and I can do whatever I please. You're not going to tell me. In fact, I didn't even want to do it, but the fact that you're telling me that I'm not going to, I'm going to show you who is in control. And that's the mindset of many. And pride comes before the fall. I'll say that. So it depends how it's presented to you. If they're controlling when they're saying it and they're being mean and nasty about it versus being more of a protector, a helper, which I think is, in general, they don't come across as, hey, I'm trying to help you. They come across as controlling. But you're right. They don't want to be controlled. I think hearing it bothers me that I fail at a way of communicating and it resolves it to me. I think hearing it bothers me. Let me look at your last comment. I'm not sure what you're saying. You think hearing what bothers you? Sometimes in the world, corporate America, showing emotions like bleeding in the water. So showing emotions for men for whom the world outside is your wild house, shutting down its defense. Okay. Some of that tripped me up, but I think what you're saying is, oh man, it's already been a long time. I'm getting ready to shut this down. But it is a defense mechanism, and the term escapes me at the moment. But there is yes, we will shut down if we feel threatened. And sometimes showing our emotions, there's a threat to who we are, to our core. There's a threat. So we show our emotion, then you get to see a part of us that we want to stay hidden or we trying to hide. And I'd rather shut down before I let that part of me seen, especially if for that woman, if I tried to be vulnerable and it backfired. But you're absolutely right. Delivery makes a big difference in how things play out too. Powerful, and I agree, but I don't think people understand that important point. Delivery is an important thing. Right, so presentation and how you present something. So we all like, I don't know if you're a vegetarian or not, but we all just think of one of your favorite dishes. Using Thanksgiving. If you're not a Thanksgiving fan, it's fine. But Thanksgiving, we all like turkey, and some of us only like ham. I went to a Christmas party one. The guy, all he had on his plate was ham. I mean, it was piled pretty high. There was nothing else. He later had heart issues and stuff like that. But anyway, we all like Thanksgiving food and turkey and what do you Southern people eat? So stuffing and macaroni and cheese and cranberry sauce and whatever else. But just think of your favorite Thanksgiving meal. You're sitting around a family dinner table, and they and it smell good. No, even before you walk to the table, you smell it. You walk in the house and smell it good. You can't wait. You're really looking forward to that food. You're sitting at the table. Your silverware out, all nice and everything. You hear them walking, coming up to you, or coming in the dining room and everything. The food smelling good and everything. But instead of bringing it to you on when they give it to you, it's not on a fine china or anything like that. It's on like a like like a trash can lid. It's a trash can on like a trash can lid. Same food, but now when you see it, or maybe the trash can lid is too gross, but let's just say dirty dishes. You see it. They bring you the dirty dish and everything. Hey, here's your food. Your How you receive that information is going to be vastly different if they would have brought that to you on fine china. So delivery makes a big difference. And I don't think, in my experiences, people really let that sink in. They don't they don't really think about that. That's a good point that you made. But you don't shut down a woman that loves you. She is home. Sure you can. We all can shut down whenever we choose, right? We all, even if we're in a relationship, and I'm not necessarily just talking about a sexual relationship, it can be a friendship or what have you. But if we all are in a relationship, we still are who we are. We still can shut down because you may be in a relationship with another person, but you are in that relationship as well. You're part of that equation. So you can shut down. Would you rather be shut down for a few moments, and moments can be a couple of hours or whatever, or just leave? So sometimes shutting down is a better defense mechanism than leaving. So she is home, but if I don't shut down and reboot, it's like a computer. If it's frozen and going crazy and just not working how you want it, if you don't shut it down and reboot so it can clean and clear and everything and be functional again, you may not like what you see. So I can understand why it would hurt if they shut down. Are you assuming not talking is the only way to shut down? Good question. One shutdown leads to another normally. Does anyone ever think communication language is different for some? In communication, there are times the receiver has barriers which cause conflict and I'll see the rest of your statement. To a particular man, just wanting things your way is shutting down. What he sees based on your fault actions might be shutting down to him. I agree. So we can't always know how we may not always know the purpose or the reason behind behavior. Earlier, I was talking about the uh, attribution, attitudinal error, and attribution errors, and how we associate or attribute a behavior to something because we need it to make sense. And we don't always know why people behave and act as they do. Example, I'm a health fanatic and you're eating poorly, smoking or drinking is killing as far as I'm concerned. You're totally shut down. Now my shutting down is valid. So there's a stimuli, poor eating or smoking or drinking. A response to that stimuli is you're shutting down because you feel that they've shut down first. Very valid point. And you get to do that. Home could be seen as egotistical. Yes, shutting down can look different for different people. I got one more question that I'm going to end this with. All negative feelings don't go away, T, because you are in love. Absolutely not. Absolutely true statement. They don't. You still, you're still part of the equation. I'm saying, I'm saying, be with a woman that feels like home, a place where you are safe to be vulnerable and recharge. So we can feel like that, right? Just like one person earlier said, they feel like the person don't care. What if we're wrong in our feeling? What if we're with a person and we think we're safe, and it feels like home, it feels like a place where I'm safe, it feels like I can be vulnerable. But what if I can't? The reboot can be a responsible thing to do. I agree. It's important that we give our partners space to be human. Everything is not personal. Why do so many people take things personally then? If everything's not personal, why is so much taken personal? All right, my last question. My last question. So women, you said a lot of things and what a man can do to be supportive of you. What's the result of that? What's the result? What's the result? What can a man expect from you if they are supporting you better? What's the result of that? Peace, balance, and trust. Okay. Okay. So if we're not supporting you, there's no peace and no trust and no balance. Okay. I'm assuming that. So uh, that there's no peace, balance, and trust if we're not supporting you. But if we're better supporting you, we get peace, we get balance, and we get trust. Plain old enjoyment. Showered with love, respect, compassion, empathy, gifts, sex. I think for some men, they just take one of those or two of those. You can keep the rest. If we still get some of those things and we don't have to support you, unfortunately. Peace, balance, and trust. Somebody's asking. She said sex with a whole bunch of exclamation points. So then are you saying that I'm not supporting you? Not there's a lack or absence of support, just not to the degree that you need it or want it, that I don't get those things? For me, I feel valued and I can submit to you and meet your needs. Very powerful statement. It's easier to get what you want when the other person's getting what they want, right? And that's good. That's good. Very, very true. You feel valued, and we all know that things impact us differently. Where we, like for me, it's respect. Somebody said is if they feel valued. I'm likelier to respond more and better and give more if I feel respected at all times or I feel respected. Somebody said if they feel valued, they give more. So we all have our quirks or our parts of us that we need. If that certain need is met, then we go above and beyond. Somebody said we get sex without doing anything besides ignoring you most of the time. Okay. So so Enigma, are you saying what's all this support then? Why are we gonna have to give all this support if we get what we want anyway? Why are we, is that what you say? You may not get enthusiastic lyrics, but and okay. Okay. Yeah, maybe. Wait. Enthusiastic lyrics. Lyrics, what are you talking about? I think I know what you're talking about, but I may need you to say that. I do need you to say that. Correction. You get those things more enthusiastically and not in a military fashion. Our service is a pleasure and not a chore. All right, so I think some of this is X-rated. And so you're talking about, I need you to say what you mean. Enthusiastic lyrics. You get those things more enthusiastically. Nigma saying, yes, that's what I'm saying. Sex can be the prize for me, or can't be the prize. These girls out here waiting. So you're saying, and now we're going on a different path. You're saying, all right, woman, so what if I don't support you like you need? If you're not having sex with me, trust me, there are women out here waiting. I think both genders, men and women, can say that, right? That each person can say. But I see what you're saying. If the woman's holding out, and this is about the women saying, well, if you're better supporting me, you're getting this. Okay, I see what you're saying. Oh, okay. Okay, so you're saying that they are pretty enthusiastic. Okay. Even if you don't support them. Okay. Okay. That's so funny. Completely different topic. I don't know if that's a topic that I should have on something like this, but I may, since it seems like people are going there. But that's funny. Sincere and loving sex and manipulative, service-oriented sex are different things. Yes, but you're saying enthusiastic lyrics. Are you talking about the sounds? You can try to stop that, but you know it's whatever with that. And see, a man, we get a receipt when we're done with sex, right? So I think for some, it doesn't matter if it's insincere or it's not loving. I corrected that statement you read. Sure. Um, I hear what you're saying. We are way off topic. What I don't even know what I asked anymore because y'all are taking me off topic. Oh, what can we expect? What's the result of being a better supporter to you or for you? Who said they were different things? I agree, Enigma. They are, but jokingly, sincerely, they are different things. But jokingly, yeah, what does it matter? You don't have to be sincere. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so this is a sex topic. I try to stay away from certain topics, but since y'all don't really care that we went there, I may in the future. I love what Chantel said. What did she say? She said, respect your love language and her maybe value. Gotta give to get, right. Yes, you do have to give to get. I think what Enigma is saying, if you don't give, you get it somewhere else. It's not a problem. Balance. Everyone gets their needs met. T says sex. So I was responding. She did. Yes, she did introduce that topic. She's the one that said she goes to church earlier. Not sure what church she goes to. Men get married when they get tired of the streets. So there's a difference. Some. You weren't joking, man. Oh, no, you weren't joking. But uh, some. That's not what he is talking about. That is what he's talking about. You weren't joking about that. I know you. I heard about you. Good things, great things about you. Imperfect people always wanting a perfect situation. Powerful. Powerful. We're messed up. But we think our situation is not going to be at sometimes to some degree. You know married dudes in the street. I know married people in the streets, not just dudes. Let's all leave that alone. Yes, let's leave that alone. Okay, the submit comment you made. Oh, he's talking about the submit comment. Oh, he wants you to, okay. You've heard of me. You don't know me. Make no mistake. I don't know. Be surprised what I know. I do a lot of listening. I keep my ears to the ground. No, but seriously, it's the topic is straying. But I do want to get back and serious and joking with you, T. I really only truly know myself. Truly, I only really know myself. So you can think you know a person, and I would be making an attribution error, correct? In that I'm assigning behavior to disposition or nature or character. So I really don't know anybody on here, to be honest with you, family, friends, or otherwise. I really only know myself. But backing up, I believe you said, life is easy, people make it hard. Sometimes a good old F all this, the moment helps. Men have a receipt. It's always going to help. Life is easy. I think I've always thought that as far back I can remember anyway, that life is, people complicate life. We do. We women should borrow from the nonchalance of men. Be careful borrowing things from us. You may realize, you may come to love it. And unlike men, because it's not natural for us, it's also easy for us to switch on and off. If something's natural for you, it's easier to do. Then if you're saying borrow this from men, that means men can do it easier. Not saying that you can't, but yeah, what are you saying? That's why I said borrow. You may not be able to give it back. You may not be able to give that back. So if you're trying to you want it for a short while, be careful. Long strings attached to lumber comes with borrowing. Somebody said you got to give to get earlier. Long strings attached to lumber comes with borrowing. Yes. There are issues I ain't got to deal with. I'm just offering an opinion with a few facts. You ain't got to, I mean, if that's you, that's you. You ain't got to lie, Craig. It's an attempt to not complicate things. Okay, right. So be nonchalant about it and won't complicate things. You may grow to love that. Can we please get back to the question? The last question I think I'm going to ask. I've been trying to ask. Besides sex, since we've pushed that down the road and strings attached to lumber and all that stuff. So yeah, what's what's the result of better supporting you? Women, is there anything new? Because I did not expect this to go so long. Yeah, woman, I'm listening. Not sure we are on topic at all. Kind of, sort of, because that's everybody went there. I think for the most part, the majority of people went there. Men can expect more sex if you're a better supporter, but it kind of just went there from peace and it just. I mean, y'all nasty perverted minds kind of went there. But what else? Men are waiting to hear what's we're doing all these things. We're trying to understand. We want to understand, and we're better supporting you as a woman, better supporting you. So, like I was saying earlier, where you feel you don't have to do everything, where you feel you don't have to do what's typically or socially accepted as a man's role or a man's job. and where you have the confidence. I think, yeah, I said confidence earlier at the beginning of saying where you have the confidence in the men in your life that they do what's necessary so that you don't have to do as much or feel like if you don't do it, it won't get done. So we're trying to understand all of that and get to that point, at least if we can't get all the way there, just after a conversation, move closer to there. So we, regardless of what it is and all the things we talked about, what's the result or the expectation, or what can we expect from better supporting you? It's nice to have a home to go to where the people actually want you there and you belong. It's nothing like paying for a home and feeling like an eternal visitor. I know that all too well to a degree. That is a sad way to live in life. Your needs are met more when you support mine. Conversation for another day. If I support yours and mine's are met more, you may not want to do what I want you to do. Like if I have three things I want you to do and I'm supporting all of yours, what if you don't like what I need or what I want? That's a deeper conversation, but okay, in general, yes, that's great to know. That is great to know. Enigma, what do we get that we can't get for $40 from a lot of these women? You're on the sex thing again, sir. Where you belong, okay? We grow and flourish together, okay? I like that. I'm guessing we get some surface stuff that's not healing me from my wounds. I think oftentimes we try and we treat a diagnosis without knowing the root of the illness. No doubt this is an illness. What's the illness? Support in acquiring the life you envision for yourself. Somebody, is that a hand like you're clapping? Okay. Got to be careful with that life you envision for yourself. It depends on, I won't go there. Right. Okay. I agree. Support in acquiring the life you envision for yourself. If you are with the one that you envision, yes, you do get that support. That's beautiful. Okay. We suffer from. No doubt this is an illness we suffer from. What's that illness, sir? One day, the old people in your life are going to die. Mom, dad, aunts, uncles, and the only people that can love you next is the family you build, spouse, friends, and family. Okay, I agree. And the void of any religious belief or even societal, especially this society, belief of in theories out there saying that hey, it's better for a person not to be alone. I would push back on some of that. Some of your statement is the only people that can love you next is the family you build, spouse, friends, and family. What if you don't care to build those things? And I'm just playing advocate here. I know people like that. The illness is we are broken. Some in mention support long in some in mention support along each other. We can't get or give proper support if we aren't healed from the trauma we have been through. Okay. Okay. You get people that care that you are doing well and will help you when you're down. The folks on the host show got a job to do. They aren't coming to your celebration, see you when you're sick or mourn or celebrate your memory. For the right price, I guess, as Enigma would say. But no, seriously, no, right. Okay, we get that. That's another benefit from supporting you all. What else before I close this out? These things seem to get longer and longer. I don't know. Anything else new, ladies? That's a good point, though. The older people in your life are going to die, and building up whoever it is, spouse, family, and friends, and that's the support you get. We get more attitude from supporting you. All right, so sir, I think you're about to take this down a different path. So let's. You want to get that started. I'll wait another minute or so before I close this down. See if I hear anything different. Don't Enigma. Don't encourage him. I don't know if you're laughing at him. Yeah. Don't encourage. No. Don't do that. Do not do that. So nothing else. Can't tell if there's anything else coming in. Men don't seem to appreciate the intangibles in life that a woman can provide: a home and someone who really cares. The goal is to make meaningful connections in life so you don't go through life borrowed. If you can get a true significant other, good on you. Okay. Okay. I think maybe men look to that later in life, maybe, where they appreciate it later in life, as opposed to maybe a woman would appreciate it sooner than a man would, because again, devoid of any religious beliefs or maybe cultural type situation. I think men and women were not meant to be alone. I think, and regardless of your religious or cultural background, but men may get there later. I guess the answer would be whatever you like. Am I coming to America worth? That was a good second movie. I heard some bad reviews. People didn't like it being politicized, but whatever you like. Okay. Enigma, write that down. She said, I guess you get whatever you like. That is a conversation I'm sure we will bring back up in a later session. You remember that one time you said we get whatever we like? This is what we want. Okay, so this wasn't a joke. I know too many guys that have been good dudes and got their heads handed to them. Right, naturally, we hear of that. You hear of that, and that's unfortunate, regardless, man or woman. But yeah, you hear of situations, and there's a court show that I watch. I can't even think of it, and it's always the guy finding out that he's not, or the woman was messing around, and he's not the father, and all of that, or just being honest, and even forget that show, but just running into guys over the years, especially in the military and everything, and their spouse or girl would go deployed or TDY and come back pregnant and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it happens to both, right? I shared it on my page with them. Okay. But sometimes it's too late. Yeah, so I agree. It could be too late for men. If you said men, it's too late for them and they recognize it later in life. It can be too late, but we all gotta walk the path that we set for ourselves with our earlier decisions. Earlier, we were talking about trusting, knowing yourself and trusting your decisions. Where you trust yourself to the degree you know yourself at that particular time. Later, you may learn more things about yourself. But yeah, it could be too late. Somebody said, well, it's already too late, so you might as well go ahead and carry on there, sir. If it's already too late, I would never be a good dude. So yeah, why try? Nope, we're not on topic. So let me conclude, because these things are getting longer and longer, and I don't know how y'all keep tricking me in doing that. But it it's this topic was more about women and what women need, and we've heard a lot of great things and some funny things and serious at time, but joking all the time. But for a little more serious note, we, we do need to be more supportive of women, regardless of the type of relationship that we have with them. And again, not just, it can be a friendship, sexual relationship, but being supportive not only helps you, but it can help them be better women. And for us in our lives, it's really a main, in my opinion, a main role of ours, where the support can be big or small. It can be emotional. It can be hands-on. It can be in many forms. It can be in forms such as just being there to listen more, without us being given our opinion or trying to solve it. And I've learned over the years, man, that women, they don't necessarily want us to fix things, right? So they don't always want us to fix the issue. Sometimes they do. They don't ask or come out and ask directly. They may want us to, but a lot of times they don't. Uh, they but we have to trust that they'll ask us if they want to help. But sometimes they just want us to listen. It can come in other forms, such as being more involved in, or letting them be more involved in, or not letting them, but them being able to be more involved in important or major decisions, right? It can be in child rearing or financial support decisions, or making decisions based on finance. It doesn't have to always be about what we want, getting the latest pair of, of Jordans, or the rims on our car, or video games. It's about getting stuff that they need as well. So we need to be better, I think, allies. Yeah, better allies for the women in our life. Point out their strengths and encourage them when they feel weak or down or out. So another thing is respecting differences. Be better at especially for me, but be men, I think in general, be better at understanding of their wants and desires, being emotionally sensitive, being stronger, or having that brute strength doesn't equal more intelligent. Aggression, it doesn't equal intelligence. It's all about having a symbiotic type of relationship. Symbiotic meaning a give and take, then a parasitic relationship, where parasites, what they do, they just suck and they take. So, so what, you're stronger physically, or you're the head of your kingdom, for instance. Intelligence only means so much if you have the emotional maturity of a 10-year-old. And even if we look at it further, a little deeper, from a relational, like a psychotherapy perspective, which is when uh, this perspective is important for people trying to maintain a fulfilling and satisfying relationship with those people they're around, in order to maintain or to keep up with their emotional health. So even a relational psychotherapy perspective. Now I'll get deeper in that in a different topic. So I kind of strayed there some, but we got a lot of work to do, men, and this was a great, I think, segue to helping us get a step closer, because we have a long way to go. But I do think you can't finish until you start. So putting us closer, helping us understand the women. I do thank y'all for your participation and your comments and the questions that you asked and allowed us to speak to that today. My next one is going to be Thursday at 7. And I'm pondering the next two on my list. One is being selfish a bad thing? And then do Black people, do we really hate going to the hospital and therapy? So those are the next two I'm throwing around. So watch out for that. But I do thank you all for those who participated and watched this video, especially you ladies, women out there who provided some important feedback for us. So again, I thank you all, and talk to you and see you again on Thursday. All right, this is Dr. O signing off.